Auctions move online during Sydney's lockdown. What effect do the restrictions have on the rental market, and how are listings faring while half the country is under stay-at-home rules? Anne Flaherty, economist at REA Group, is here to tell us more. Good morning, Anne. First up, what lessons?
Morning.
Yes, what lessons from Melbourne's lockdown last year can help Sydney here?
Yeah, well, hopefully the extent and the length of Melbourne's lockdown won't be replicated in Sydney and things can get under control soon. But it does provide a useful template to see, what happened in Melbourne, what is now happening in Sydney, and how will that impact the property market over the coming months. So, what we saw in Melbourne last year was that there was actually a delayed impact. So, it took around 2 months for the Melbourne market to be fully impacted. But we saw sales fall 70% below pre-outbreak levels in Melbourne. Having said that, once restrictions started to ease in Melbourne, we saw nearly double the number of properties transact. Now, while those figures are hopefully more extreme than what we'll see in Sydney, undoubtedly we've already started to see a reduction in the number of properties transacting in Sydney, and we're already hearing about more and more vendors delaying bringing their properties to market. Now, winter's usually a quieter time anyway, and things sort of ramp up a bit in spring. So we expect actually this year, because of what's happening in Sydney, we're probably going to have one of the biggest spring seasons we've seen.
It's going to explode, isn't it? It really will. Once the situation in Sydney/New South Wales gets under control, which it will do, no doubt, over the next few weeks, this whole market will go off, and there's nothing really to stop it.
You're exactly right. Look, before the lockdown hit, Sydney's property market, and indeed Australia's property markets, had been performing extremely strongly. There's a really, really high level of demand in the market, but with vendors not bringing their properties to sale because of the current conditions, what we'll see is that when they do come to market, the demand will be there. The buyers are there.
How will the moratorium on evictions impact the rental market?
Yeah, look, because of the moratorium and also because of disaster relief payments going to individuals and businesses that have been affected, we don't expect that the impact on the rental market will be too great. So hopefully this will help to tie people over in the interim between things opening up again. Now, rental demand is still pretty good out there, but yeah, hopefully the impact won't be too much.
Half the country, as we know, is in lockdown, so it's pretty much dormant. What about listings faring outside of New South Wales and other parts of the country?
Yeah, look, buy listings have started to decline a little bit, but we have seen rental listings stay relatively steady. One thing that we really have seen, and it's been a trend that I've talked about a few times, is this two markets in Australia. There's the regional market and the inner city market that have been performing extremely differently. Now, regional property is still in very, very hot demand, and we're seeing both from the rent side and the buy side, the number of people looking to buy and rent regional properties is far outstripping supply. And on realestate.com.au, when we get new listings to the website, they're not keeping up with demand. So we're actually seeing over time the total number of listings steadily decline in regional areas. Now, in inner city markets, the story is pretty much the opposite, where we've seen an increase in the number of listings. We're also seeing properties take longer to sell and to lease in inner city markets, particularly in Melbourne and Sydney, where vacancy rates are higher.